Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first LCO podcast. We're not actually sure what it's called just yet. That's going to be a topic that we're going to go through. But, this is something that is a little bit new for all of us. We're going to try and make something happen here. Obviously, I've got Rusty and Juves alongside me. You should know us all from the LCO itself. But, lads, this is a bit of a taste test, I suppose, or a little bit of a teaser as to what we're going to try and do a little bit maybe in the future, come 2022. We're going to have a bit of a chat about what's happening in OSLOL, what we're expecting to see from Worlds. We're going to debate some tier lists that have been thrown around the place. What does the current patch offer for a bunch of the teams playing in League of Legends in Worlds? And obviously, who do we expect to win the whole thing? So primarily, those are going to be the focuses of this show. Essentially what we're trying to do here is go through and, I guess, start a podcast for LCO. So that's where we're at this point in time. We don't actually know what we're going to call it, by the way. So if anyone has any ideas for us, that would be probably a good thing to sort of chuck our way, and maybe you can help us name the podcast. Juves, have you managed to make it to Master yet?
Yeah, I have, but it's not been in the specific game that you're talking about. Let's just put it that way. So I know Rusty's grinning because he definitely knows what game I'm talking about. To be honest with you, I actually perked up because I was like, I'm going to put my professional hat on, and it's a very loose professional hat. But I'm chilling now. I'm leaning back a little bit, my hands in my face, and it is what it is.
Yeah, this is supposed to be quite relaxed as well. So if you hear a few F-bombs from Juves, that's going to be totally fine.
I don't
Rusty,
fucking swear.
Okay, well,
no, never.
What have you been up to, Rusty? I mean, I hear you're just taking care of a couple of dogs at the moment, so that's pretty much your whole life. So you must be pretty happy that there's some more League of Legends to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been doing a whole lot, man. Been playing a boatload of New World. Skinned a boar and got banned for 24 hours. You know how it is. But we're back. We're on the grind. Can I just say as well, before we get into any kind of topics, I don't know about you guys, but I've been pushing for this type of format thing for years. I love the idea of the same people that we work with right on the LCO, but without the restrictions of being on a broadcast where we have to be more user friendly. You can swear, you can get away with stuff. It just sounds so much more cool to me. So yeah, I'm glad that something exists in any format.
I really like it. Obviously, this is still pretty loose. Again, like I said, we're not really sure what we're going to be doing with this. It is the very first episode. We've barely planned anything for this one, so it really could go in any direction. But hopefully, if it goes well, you guys like it, we can continue to do a little bit more of this kind of stuff. And I agree with you, Rusty. I do my own podcasts for some other titles, and I was kind of keen to do one for League of Legends. I just never really got around to doing it. It's obviously quite difficult to sort of start one. But once you start, hopefully it goes well, and hopefully things are going to be pretty interesting.
I ignored it for far too long, and I can't go on without addressing the elephant in the room.
What?
What the beep is your background, dude?
This is no.
Are
okay,
we gonna just start off with that background and then just move on to a topic?
It's because I'm Galaxy Brain. How did you not figure that out?
Rusty.
I'm assuming this gets released as an audio as well. So for anyone who can't see Jordan, it is literally a galaxy behind him. But I don't know what's going on.
It's a very purpley, starry, when my sister was 6, that was the roof of her.
What, you don't like stars? You don't like purple? What have you got against purple?
It looks
stars?
like you read tarot readings for people and have scented candles. That's all I'm saying.
And if you do that, all good, fine. It's fun. Honestly, do my reading, whatever. But, Jordan, you look like a clown.
Look, I'll tell you what, Juice. If this gets a second episode, you can decide my background, and then we'll go from there. All right. So I'm sure we'll find something fun. It might be my OPGG when it's all red, but that's okay. Anyway, I think we should actually get into the topics because we have been waffling on for a little bit. We want to talk about Worlds. We want to talk about Peace at Worlds and what we are going to expect from them. So obviously they're going to be playing in play-ins. They've managed to qualify to that. There's obviously a fair bit to go through there. They'll have to make it out of their group, but just looking at their group, obviously 4 out of 5 do make it out. So there is every real possibility that they do actually manage to do so, right? We saw Pentanet at MSI doing so and putting on a pretty good show for the Oceanic region. So Rusty, I know you were a little bit outspoken about that last time we saw an Oceanic team going overseas. What are your thoughts this time? Do you reckon they're going to be able to cut the mustard in Group A?
I definitely think I was the only one without a bias when we were approaching those predictions. In their group, they have Red Canids from Brazil, Leaning from China, Infinity from Latin America, and Hanwha from Korea. And I've never really looked at that grouping of teams and thought this is the one that Oceania makes it out of, if that makes sense to you guys. But the beauty of it is that 3 teams can go to the next stage, right? Like there's auto qualifiers. So like, oh yeah, Peace have a chance. They have a very good chance of making third. Is probably the way that I look at this one. I don't know about you guys, but that's my stance.
I mean, third, yeah, like you're playing for third. Let's call a spade a spade. I mean, I'm just looking at the roster of red candidates now, and I'm not a big, time zones and whatever. I don't keep up with the Brazilian circuit too much or scene, so don't necessarily know what they're coming in like. But I will say we do quite well against the CBLOL, against the Brazilian sides, right? Even in years where we're not meant to win, where they have some really stacked teams. So I'm very, very, very optimistic, but also think it's a realistic possibility that we do slot into that third place in that group.
Okay, that's some positive signs, at least as far as I'm concerned. If our 2 premier Oceanic analysts
what do you think,
that
Jordan?
it's possible,
Don't try and get out of here.
Listen,
what do you think? Give us an opinion.
I'm here to be the host. I'm here to.
No, you're not. You're actually not.
Okay,
because I'll start hosting if you're not going to answer questions.
You host. Ask me the question then. Ask me the question.
Now, Jordan Elfish, guys, can you please just answer the question for me? What do you think Peace's chances are of making it out of this really devilish looking group? Group A.
Well, look, I mean, I am not exactly the smartest guy when it comes to International League of Legends. Like you guys, I don't tend to watch a huge amount. The time zones are a bit rough for us. Although, I think when I look at it and I see a Chinese team and a Korean team in the same group, that to me already starts to scream problems for anyone else. So I'd have to say, yeah, I probably agree with you guys. It'll be tough. It'll be difficult, but I do have my faith. Like I feel like Oceania is sort of undersold in a sense in a lot of these kind of instances where every single time I see them going over to Worlds or over to MSI or International Tournament or this or that or whatever, everyone's kind of talking down on them, thinking it's impossible. And this goes back a long way, back to even when, Legacy
the
was
Jurassic
playing overseas
period,
and
I
stuff.
believe, of esports.
No one ever thought Oceania could do anything in League of Legends. And to be honest, I look back at some of the history and some of the results that we've had, and I think it's actually pretty reasonable. So maybe I'm just a fair weather supporter. Maybe I'm just biased, but I definitely think there's a possibility.
Now, that's actually a good pivot into another talking point if we've got the time, which we do, and even if we don't, I don't care.
Because we're making the time, aren't
we?
we?
Exactly. Okay. We have 5 players at Worlds, so we have a roster, 5 Australian players at Worlds. So you've got a roster there, right? You've got a full roster of Australian players. Now North America has 2. For whatever reason, like they import, they've got more money, they've got more resources. That's fine. Like that's not the argument to be made here. But with a region with limited resources, limited player numbers, maybe some of the smallest player numbers in the world in terms of, I think do we compare with Japan, their server numbers?
I think we're slightly bigger, but I'm not an expert on servers.
But it's close, right? Either way, it's close. And to put up, like you said, the performances we put up get so close each time, it's a decent effort. Now, I know a lot of people aren't happy with ribbons of participation, but I mean, in primary school, I got a couple of those and it did make my day. So hopefully, you know what I'm saying? Like, at least maybe it makes our day with a participation ribbon. But this is the one I'm feeling it. This is the one.
You know what it is, Juves? It's like when you go to the Olympics or you're watching the Olympics, because that's just happened. So this is much more topical and relevant. You get those people that make it to the finals and you interview them. You're like, so what do you think is going to happen? They're like, oh, bro, I'm just happy to be here. But it's like, that's sick. They made the Olympics. They made the finals.
Yeah.
Like, no one expects them to win, but that's the coolest shit ever. Like,
yeah.
But that is the best analogy I've ever heard because it's so true. You make Worlds and you're from a smaller region and you put up an amicable performance. Like you're in freestyle for the last 50 meters, you're in front, and then guess what? Day 2 rolls around at Worlds and you lose all your games. So you lose that 50 meters and then you don't place, you don't get a medal. But everyone's still wrapped at the Olympics. Everyone's like, oh man, well done. But for some reason in League, it's like, nah, you guys are shit. You guys are shit. Purge the region. Like
this
what?
This is literally, so if someone asks what we expect Peace to be at Worlds, what I want to say from now on is I want to hit a PB and finish 8th. Like I want to just hit them, like be better by 1 second on our time, but just not go anywhere. Well, but like it's still good.
1 second better on your time in this realm actually means we make it to. I know. So we would be in groups, but we'd win 1 more game.
So 2 games in groups.
So 2 games.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. That's a dub. That's a huge dub.
I think so. I think so. So, look, I mean, I feel like there's a bit of pent-up rage for you, Juves, at the moment. I don't know if there's
Oh,
anything you want to let out. Do you want to
no.
like pause for a second and let something out, or?
I've been a part of the region for so long. A region that has produced players like FBI, Ryoma, if there's any old school people listening, Radia,
Players that you've produced to kick off
nah,
that list,
yeah, I
Juice.
mean, whatever. If they want to chuck me a few grand, that's fine. Um, Destiny, Rays, like, Hayri, you could keep going. There's so many players overseas from OS, right? Now, let's say next year you bring all of them back. Let's, like, in a theoretical world, bring all of those nameplates back. I would argue, like, the best team you could put together from OS players would be a contender. Not to win worlds. No,
Well,
like, I'm not saying that, but in terms of, like, being in the group stage.
That's something that actually really hit me when because again, like for me, as far as League of Legends is concerned, I was around like season 1, 2, 3, maybe just a bit into 4, but I wasn't paying a huge amount of attention during OPL apart from maybe the first couple of seasons. And obviously, I've come back after quite a long time, so a lot of these players are sort of new to me. But the prevailing sentiment that I felt like coming into LCO season 1 or Split 1 was that all the good players had gone overseas or had stopped playing or were coaching or doing this or doing that. And now all we've got left in LCO was, quote unquote, the dregs. Now, I mean, that's probably a harsh way of saying it, but these were not the top players at that point in time. At least that's the way it came across to me. Again, I'm trying to frame this from an outside perspective.
Hey, dude, it's after our show. You can say
you're
whatever
right.
you want, man. Seriously,
You're good.
stop.
Sure,
Don't beat around
basically,
the bush.
people basically said these were the guys that were like the tier 2 players. They weren't going to be able to achieve anything internationally speaking. And then after Split 1, we have Pentanet go to MSI. They make it out of their group and they go into the knockout stage. So, like what can you really say? I feel like there is still that talent there, even if people are going to go overseas. That happens in every game, right? I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about other games, but to be honest, fuck it. It's my show. We do whatever we want. We talk about Counter-Strike. There was teams that went overseas. There was players that went overseas. Everyone said the region's dead. There's no good players left anymore. And now look what happens. We've got teams going to the major competing well, and basically they're the top team in the Asian region. So I don't know what you can really say about it. In my opinion, I think people are just a little bit too negative in the moment, and they don't recognize that it's a question of what's going to happen in the future, not necessarily what's going to happen in the next 6 months.
Literally half. And if I'm saying bro, this is casual, dude. Half of esports sometimes, or like at least the competitive circuit, is just negativity, but projection. Like just projecting negativity for absolute no reason other than to maybe feel better about, like, whatever it is. Like, just give the guys a chance. That's all I'm saying, man. Like, give the guys a chance. Like, you don't need to shit on rookies or people coming through or the next generation of players. Like, it doesn't need to happen. But it happens. I'm not even talking specifically for OS, man. Like, even in NA it happens. In Europe it happens. For some reason, and I don't know how it started, but like it just feels like not even content creation, but it feels like it is cool to be negative. It is cool to have that like really outlandish opinion that like shits on like players or people or new players, and I mean that's just how yeah.
Dude, can I tell you something as well? This is a small tangent, but it's relevant to that point. I was playing Valorant recently, and we were a 4-stack, so we're playing ranked. And the fifth person that we had, it was in voice chat, but he was clearly a very young kid, And he was playing pretty well. I made a mistake, and then I said in voice chat, "My bad," and then he apologized to me, and it like that took a second, but like it sunk in. I was like, this kid, because he wants to survive in the world, is apologizing by default because he thinks everyone's going to be mean to him or is negative to him. And like he's been conditioned at like 12 years old to have to, like, that was so fucked once I realized that was the case. And I was like complimenting him and being positive the whole time to try and compensate. But like that feels like it's a reality almost of the shit that we deal with in gaming lately. And then you put that into a pro scene where they're public facing, it just gets all kinds of fucked,
Yeah. And it also happens in traditional sport, and so I'm not saying we should just baby people or players. I'm not saying that. Like, there's definitely avenues, routes, media that should have opinions on players underperforming. Like, if Perks is on a $5 million deal or whatever it is in LCO, if the best paid player isn't doing well, Of course, man. Say it. Like, say he's not doing well.
Sword Art, right?
It's what? Sorry.
Sword Art was being paid
Yeah.
millions and was definitely underperforming.
Yeah, but I think that in a space where content creation is king, we need to be a little more mindful of, like, I guess I'm not gonna like, witch hunt isn't the word, but maybe it is. The witch hunt.
The bandwagon, I think, maybe
Yeah,
is probably
bandwagon witch
what you're
hunt
looking
that you
for.
start, and not on purpose. I'm not saying people that start this tirade on players like it happens on purpose, but yeah, it's tough to see sometimes. And I don't even know how we ended up here because we're talking about worlds, but whatever.
That's the point of this show, though, right? Is just to go down the rabbit hole. Anyway, I think to get things back on track a little bit and to continue talking about worlds. I mean, we've given our opinions. We think maybe Peace has a chance in Group A. Maybe we're just biased casters. Who knows? You can tell us.
They have a chance to come third.
Yeah, okay, sure. But third is pretty good. I think third's pretty good anyway.
Well, third puts you in a best of 5 against presumably Beyond Gaming or Cloud9 to make the group stage, right?
You take that every day of the week, I think.
All day.
Every day of the
I'd
week.
love to see them against Cloud9. What a good story that would be.
Can I be honest? I think the O's victory against Cloud9 was a very big anomaly. I think we do just get genuinely pumped by them. And again, I don't watch PCS, so I'm hoping they're just not as good as PSG. But like Fudge is too good. In my opinion, like Chachi's come out of retirement, all good, like fantastic career and whatnot. But I think Fudge is like hitting his prime. Perks, like love Tally to bits, but
it's not Perks.
Okay, well, I think this is a good segue into what we should actually be talking about. I think, and that is the substitution in top. I know we obviously want to talk in depth maybe about this Cloud9 matchup, but we haven't even talked about the substitution in top, and you're sort of referring to that already. And I think it's quite a big deal, right? Apii obviously wasn't able to go overseas because of visa issues, which is really unfortunate. That fucking sucks, to be honest. To play a whole year basically, try to make this happen, and then. Basically you're just stuck at home. So was Lisa, as far as I heard, but he's obviously not on the starting roster, so it's maybe not as big of a concern. But I'm sure they would have both wanted, at the very least, the opportunity to play in EU West and to play in solo queue and sort of do their best there. You mentioned Vizicsacsi coming in. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that name correct because, to be honest, that's a tough one, just looking at it on paper. But he comes in the top lane, so I think before I get your opinions, I don't even want to hear it from you, Juves. I've got someone better, all right? I want to hear from Tally first. He's given us some words about Vizicsacsi, so let's see what he says.
Vizzy has been really, really easy to work with player. I think he's really knowledgeable and experienced. So it's really easy for him to pick up on how we play, and it's really easy for us to learn new things from him because he is such a smart player. So I'm just really glad that we were able to get like such a easy to work with player in this short amount of time that we have. I would say Vizzy is just mainly, so he would come off as a pretty like passive person out of game, but in game he's a very aggressive leader and he just really knows how to punish people. So I think that as a team we've become much more aggressive and we're much better at punishing mistakes, as you'll be able to see on everything we play.
And I'm bringing it back. We've just watched the video. Is that what I say?
Say whatever you like.
I mean,
I've already done it. I've stuffed it. This is why I don't host. This is why I'm
This podcast is scuffed.
Go again if you want.
Bring it back. Bring it back. And yeah.
Maybe we can find a replacement for Juves, just like
Trust me.
Peace
New
found a
World is
replacement
waiting
for
anyway.
Apii.
But anyway, no, because I was laughing before we threw to this video because I read on there's a bit of trivia on Chachi's or Vizicsacsi's like Leaguepedia page, and Vizicsacsi means water donkey in Hungarian. His name is literally water donkey, and I feel like we can't gloss over that.
It's like when you work on the LPL, you learn all these different weird names and stuff, and like you just call them what they are, right? Like Xiaohu is just Xiaohu, but then you realize it means little tiger, and it like progresses. Yeah, it progresses down this rabbit hole where you've just suddenly realized that everyone's name means something, and then you start to get even more confused, right? Because there's a player who was called 957. It's just 3 random, just Roman numeral numbers. Just completely thrown together. And I asked them what it meant, and they were like, "We have no idea." And so, like, this guy has just used an English keyboard to do random shit as his name, and no one knows why.
MLXG.
Malas Yangwa, which is spicy dry hot pot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. The things you learn on a LCO podcast. There you go. This is why you have to tune in every single time we record one of these. I remember there was a Chinese Counter-Strike pro, and his name was Westmelon. And apparently, look, maybe you can confirm this for me, Rusty, or not, but apparently it's some sort of pun to do with like watermelon or something. I don't know. It's something to do with the Chinese word for watermelon or something like that. Anyway, that's besides the point. Vizicsacsi, what do we think? Coming in for Peace. Tally already indicating that changes the way that they play as a team a little bit. I was going to sort of bring that up, and I'm kind of interested or glad even that Tally sort of did it for me, because I was going to ask you guys what you thought, was the case in the Peace team, who was like the figurehead in terms of the leadership, maybe who's the one calling the shots, where's the driving force coming from behind that Peace roster? Because, and to give my opinion here, I didn't really ever get that sense from Apii. We're not sitting inside of the server, we're not sitting inside the team comm, so I can't say for sure. But from what I could see, it seemed like a lot of the shot calling and a lot of the discussion and a lot of the playmaking comes from the bot side of the map, from Aladoric roaming around the place, Babip's there as well, obviously. And then Apii's kind of just left up on the island, as you generally see from a top laner. So if they've brought in an aggressive top laner, someone that wants to be making plays, someone that wants to be sort of calling the shots, how does that change things for Peace as a team?
I think there's two things I want to say here as well, and obviously want Juves' opinion on this. But the first part is, I think with how much experience the team has, like, they're so flexible now, which is a big strength. Like, we already saw Violet playing passively and whatnot in the second split, So I think adding him should just be a positive. I actually feel like, with all due respect to Apii, because he's a lovely guy, but like, Vizicsacsi's got history. He's got international history as well. Like, this should be a very calm, measured person added to a stressful environment, which should be good. And I think that's a positive in the end, though he has to integrate. And, you just pray that it's good. The other thing that Tally mentioned with aggression, which is what I wanted to bring up for you, Juves, is I'm so glad that they're aggressive right now. Like, this is the one thing that shoots me to tears. When you send an Oceanic team internationally, we're obviously outmatched, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's the caliber of players in some of these teams is just so good. So why is it that we try and play our game, which is like a slow-paced, like, I'm the best in my region type of game, when you probably have to flip burgers? Like, if you're not flipping some burgers, what are you really going to do to beat a team that is just better than you,
That is quite literally my career as a player in a nutshell. It was like, back when, like, remember Chiefs were like really dominant, they didn't lose the tournament. We used to watch LCK VODs and try and mirror LCK teams, which is literally, back then, it was quite literally 55-minute games, 60-minute games, like 500 CS Teddy Silva on Jag. Like, and you can't replicate that because we don't have the discipline nor the skill, the harsh reality, right? Discipline being a big factor. But what we can do as a region, and I think literally every team in our region, and this is for present LCO, you can flip burgers. Like, you can fight the scuttle. You can have Eladoric sack Violet, walk topside, make a play. Violet's down 20, 15, 10 CS or whatever, but Vizicsacsi's just got to kill 2 turret plates, and then you're stronger for the Rift Herald fight at 8 minutes, right? And I would, like Rusty said, I would much rather lose a game in 10 minutes than just slow bleed for 30. And then all of a sudden you tab check at 35 minutes, you're down 8k, nothing's happened, you're down 3 dragons. And I feel like at MSI, there was a lot of games where PGG fell into that trap of trying to just make it out of laning phase, then make moves on the map. But I think, flipping burgers, and I mean, that's the term we use, flipping burgers is just the superior strategy. We would watch LPL VODs all of the time because LPL is just like a scrappy games. And scrappy is probably a little bit disrespectful because in the chaos, there's a lot of thought that actually goes into it. But I feel like it's easier to replicate from a region that is scrappy as already. And so, I mean, if what they're saying is true with the Chachi edition, then I think that's going to be huge because I think it's he can't shot call, like, it's your top laner can't shot call in the first 15 minutes of a game, but what he can communicate is like, top's diveable on next wave. This is a Rift Herald fight. I've got there's so and I think he'll do that a lot better than Apii, and no disrespect to Apii.
For sure, yeah, I'm with you. Jordan, who do you think? I'm just curious. Who do you think is the most important member on Peace, like at Worlds? Who do you think is like the most important?
No pressure.
I mean, I think it's Aladoric. I think based on the season that we just watched, it has to be
Good
Aladoric,
answer.
right? They were a shambles without Aladoric. And then as soon as he comes in, he's just like literally fucking hard carrying. We gave him MVP 3 weeks in a row or something. It's crazy.
I spoke to a player who will remain unnamed because I don't know if they want to be named. Recently, and by recently, let me check. 5 hours ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
pretty
and
recent.
they actually said, something along the this region just needs aggression. It doesn't matter what type of aggression, just fucking go. Just fucking pull the trigger. And then the summary was Aladoric. Like the summary was,
Mhm.
oh yeah, it's Aladoric. Yeah.
Yeah, someone just needs to send it,
and
right?
like, some of his best games were on Leona, and then like obviously we're gonna pivot into probably some patch talk, but Amumu probably now, right?
Yep.
And just all these go buttons. And sometimes he'll drop 10 deaths, but Carbon actually did a funny tweet. No one bats an eyelid when your support's dropping double-digit deaths because they're gonna get the engage that wins
True.
you the game. And like that's kind of Aladoric, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's Aladoric, and the thing is, like, not only is it his meta, it's like if you go to an international event, this is like his first international. So, like, that's why I have reservations. It's like, God, I hope he's not going to shit the
Yeah.
bed. I truly want him to succeed, but there's so much pressure that I would be putting on him personally because he has to be the wild card doing everything. He's the one that level 3 is just suddenly top lane, like that guy in solo queue that you absolutely despise from the enemy bot lane, you kind of need that from
I
him.
saw a good tweet about that. There was a tweet the other day. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was it was a video clip of someone they cut together a clip of someone
yes.
buying Moby boots and just I'll never see you again, and then the fucking support
Yeah.
diving top lane and the bot lane, the Ezreal's just getting 1v2'd on the tower, please come back. So I think that's pretty much where we're at this point in the meta, and I think it is a good little segue that you bring up there, Juves, to start talking about the patch and all of that. But before we do jump into that, I do just want to go on to this final point about the groups and play-ins and whatever. We have the question, who is making it out of each play-ins group? And I think a better question is actually who is not making it out, because 4 go through, 1 goes out. So Group A, who's not making it out between all the teams that Peace has to go
So
up?
it's
Or is it Peace?
4 teams make it out of the play-ins groups into the main stage, right? But it's 6 teams that go into best of 5s or something like. No, there's auto qualifiers. Okay, I've got it. There's auto qualifiers and then there's best of 5s to qualify in. So
Correct. Yeah.
I think that there is realistically no world that one of the 4 major regions don't make it out. Just to super clear here, I think Hanwha Life, Lining, Beyond, and Cloud9 should all just get out. It should be absolutely no issue. The question for me is more who can even challenge them? Who can actually push them? And so I'd be looking at maybe Unicorns of Love show up better, and the CIS region shows up better than MSI because they were not there to nearly the standard that we've known them to be, because they're usually the ones that absolutely crap on Oceania. So I always look at them and say, can they do it? So no surprises unless they do.
What have you got for me, Juves? Anything
I
spicy?
think it's not going to be spicy. Yeah, I think it's going to be. I echo the sentiment that Rusty brings in this instance. Sometimes, MSI, I didn't necessarily agree with Rusty, but this one, I think, it's going to be one of those ones. I was just looking at. I was doing some research.
Fair enough.
I was just looking up the roster for the Unicorns of Love, just to see if they got their 80 carry back, because anyone that doesn't know, Unicorns of Love weren't too hot at MSI, but they also had a sub 80 carry. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what type of team they bring. And I'm looking here. They did just 4 months ago added an 80 carry to their roster. So it's a different player this time around.
Well, I mean, if you talk about roster changes, I mean, there's so many for
They
Peace. I
changed
think it's going to
coach
be
too,
hard
by the way.
for teams to.
That's a quick.
Yeah.
I also don't know about that one.
That's an extra thing too.
Hello,
Wait, who changed coach?
what's the logic?
What
Yeah.
between changing your coach?
What coach changed?
Maybe they didn't like the
Maybe
old
they
one.
didn't like-
Are you
Peace,
talking about
sorry, not
Peace or
I'm
Unicorns of
talking
Love?
about Peace. Yeah.
Who'd they get?
Oh,
What?
really?
Where have you
Who
guys
did-
been, man?
I haven't, mate. I've been chopping trees on New World. What do you mean?
Welcome, and I quote, this is their tweet. Welcome Hao Kola Zhang to the Dragon's Den as our new head coach. Time for... Yep, well...
I didn't
Won't
see
put it
that.
on Twitter
there you go,
now.
guys. I'll link it to you right now.
Listen,
I
in
am
my
on
defense-
some fucking amateur hour podcast right now. I'll tell you that much right now.
In
I'll
my
tell you what,
defense, I'm not getting paid to
I
keep
tell
up
you
with
guys what,
Oceanic
man,
League of Legends anymore.
I don't get paid to do your job too, yeah?
Well, you're not. You fucking sucked at hosting
Yeah,
coming
that's
out of
not what
that
Cookie messaged
video.
me. I'll tell you how
So
much right now.
I don't know what
He's
you want from
on
me,
speed dial
Juves.
right now, saying you've done so much better than old mate Jordan. But there you go. There's a new coach.
There you go.
Right. Anyway, so maybe it was just a case of them thinking maybe we need to sort of level up for Worlds. Maybe we need someone else to help us out. That could be the only thing that I could assume. I don't really have like any experience being in a team environment. Like I've never coached a team. I've never played in a competitive team. I've never been a manager in a competitive team or anything like this. So you two probably have a better insight on this than me. But I don't. Do you think it really makes that much of a difference for Peace? To change the coach more so than to change their top laner? Like, surely to me, that's the bigger
if
change.
your coach is an upgrade, like let's just assume this coach is God's gift to LCO, then it is maybe a bigger upgrade, maybe than Chachi to Apii, because fundamentally every team that plays in the LCO is flawed. I don't think anyone will disagree. Every single team in the LCO fundamentally is flawed. If your fundamentals are good as a team, like you have no holes whatsoever, then I think you're probably playing for another region. Or like, and even then there's some flaws in a lot of teams. But if this coach, for whatever reason, can implement practices, rules of engagement, or like a way that they operate, then maybe we're going to see another level for this team, for this piece outfit. And what I mean by that is like a small, just a quick like example would be like fundamentally, like I would say, priority when I used to coach teams, like fundamentally priority doesn't exist unless you see them catching the waves. You could push the wave in, it's hitting their turret, and you're like, oh, we got prio, or walk in, you get caught, and you're like, but you don't have prio. So just having that type of discipline, like this is a very small scale example, and if the coach can do that and also come with really solid drafts, then it's a big dub.
Yeah, every coach is different too, man.
Do you have anything here, Rusty?
The way that I see it as well is like we don't know necessarily what their previous coach provided. We don't know what type of input the players have. Like there's so much just shit around it. But if the coach comes in and provides a new system, like you were saying, that's actually just really good for the team and creates a healthy environment, that's all I would want, right? You're already going to an international, so you just want the environment to be productive and healthy because you're expecting to lose and you want to improve from it. It's like going to a boot camp, right? Where you've got a new trainer that's there. It's not just your regular football coach. And this boot camp trainer is just going to have to drill something into you real fast, and it's going to have to be really effective. Yeah. So I just have to trust, I guess, that Peace have made a good decision
and
here.
Can I also just add what irks me? And like it's not even just a Peace specific thing, but where's the fucking context? Like, surely a big announcement like that comes with a little bit of context. Like, yeah, and ex-coach is still helping us or not helping us. He's gone.
Yeah.
It's two coaches. Like, it leaves me questioning like what's going on and maybe a little bit uneasy.
Wouldn't mind a video. Yeah, wouldn't mind a video on something.
Yeah, I was going to say a video.
No, but they're not the only team that does it. Like, it's happened with other teams.
Oh, for sure.
No, definitely. Sure. I mean, we see roster changes every couple of weeks, and there's no context. And again, it sounds like we're talking about Peace, and in some instances, yes. But there has been roster changes on other teams where we're left sort of wondering, like, oh yeah, X is playing today, but why? We don't really know. And it's just like, well,
do you think esports roasts coaches as much as traditional sport does? Because traditional sport, coaches get put to like, God, they're just lambs to slaughter for fans.
Yeah, coaches are. It's good to be. I think it's good to be a coach in esports, and that's funny to say because to be a player in esports is a misery sometimes. Like, you do not want to open that social media platform or read Twitch chat. Oh wow, I still get when I sleep at night. I still have flashbacks from Twitch chat.
What was the Babbitt post on Twitter the other day? He said something along the lines of "Wake up and grind solo queue, go to bed angry, and wake up just wanting to play solo queue again." Like that's basically your life as a pro player, and you don't want to open social media because the going to bed angry is just infinitely shitter. It's rough.
Your window is turbo dopamine. You just open social media and just fucking reel it in, dude. I've gone fishing and I'm reeling.
Everyone's like,
reeling. You've got the line. It's 50 kilo limit. Let's go. But then when you lose, delete app.
Delete it. All right. Well, look, I think part of that is because of the fact that people probably don't really understand what coaches do in esports. Like, I feel like it's a little bit more of a front-facing thing in sport than it is in esport. We get a lot of interviews with players and that sort of thing, but we don't really, seem to. I feel like you don't get the same exposure to coaches, and maybe it's a bit different in League of Legends because we do talk to the coaches a lot more than we do in other titles. But you think about like post-match press conferences in traditional sports after let's take State of Origin or something like that. The Queensland Maroons. They lose, their fucking coach is sitting there getting absolutely ass blasted by like thousands of people from the media, and then that goes to print for the next day, and then all the laymen just read that and go, ugh, this guy sucks, get rid of him. So I feel like there isn't that much I don't even know what I'm really trying to say here, but there's not that much sort of emphasis put on the coach as there is on the players
I also
in
think
esports.
that the one thing that you can almost get wrong is like pick ban, but there's so many variables in pick ban that
yeah. And it's easy to say but everything went to plan and we just didn't
whereas like in
execute it
traditional
right.
sports, everyone can see in soccer as an example, formation, everyone can see a 3-5-2. And if you get blasted, every fan thinks they're a coach and they're just like, oh, we should have played a 4-4-2, we should have played a 4.
That's what I was gonna say. I think you've just hit the biggest point though, Juves, is that the fans think they know everything. And that's because, one, there is local systems where they are coaching or getting coached as well when they're playing growing up, right? So everyone's opinions are so strong. But the other thing is that coaches in sport talk to the players. Like, there is a game going on, but the coach can still talk to you. There's a halftime, there's a quarter time. And in esports, you leave them at draft and just cross your fingers. I assume you've done this as well, Juves. You'll just say, this is what the draft does. And I swear to God, if you mess this up, I'm going to be pissed. Because we've won the draft. We cannot lose this fucking game.
We've played this all week, man, and you fucking lost. We've played it all week in scrims, and then one time we lose, he's on stage, you animals.
Yeah.
And then Juves forces everyone to delete their Twitter because they don't want to go on Twitter. Anyway, look.
You guys are staying on... I'm not going to grill you. You guys
they're
are
going on Twitter.
And you will never let this happen again.
It's going to be like some dystopian movie where they're forced to have their eyes open and there's just tweets flicking across their screen telling them how shit they are, and hopefully they learn for next week. Look, let's actually talk about the patch notes because we have, well, not the patch notes itself, but maybe some of the more significant changes coming into Worlds than what we had from the season, because we've been trying to get onto this topic for the last 20 minutes, I feel like, and you guys just keep going on tangents. It's not my fault as a host. It's your fault as the players in this scenario. Anyways, so I don't think it necessarily bears mentioning to go directly onto 11.19 because there's a bunch of patches to go previous to this than the ones we've last obviously discussed on LCO. And I want to sort of throw a few things at you guys. And then, maybe you guys can come up with a couple of talking points as well if you think there's important changes to certain champions or whatnot. But for me, there's a few interesting things that have gone on. Sona obviously having those changes. I don't know how big of an impact that is going to have, so I want to talk about that. The fact that Leona got nerfed, that's a big one. I feel like for Aladoric and for Peace in particular, that could be a big factor. And then obviously the Amumu changes, right? We've seen Amumu just fucking skyrocket as far as supports are concerned. That champion literally got me to Diamond. So I don't know if that champ's turbo broken or if I'm actually just good at the game now. It's probably the former. Juves is definitely going to tell me the former after watching one of my Zerath sport games. But listen, that champion to me seems absolutely fucked right now. So are we seeing that guy perma pick ban in Worlds?
It's funny that you picked 3 supports as well, just quietly. You can't get your head out of that role at the moment. I actually did the same thing as you, Jordan. When I saw the Sona change, I was like, oh god, Sona is broken now. And then I realized the Mumu existed, so it doesn't matter. Because what is a Sona going to do when you just constantly die? Absolutely, if we don't see a Mumu, I'd be angry. I wouldn't even be surprised, I'd be angry. I think it's just broken. And it's amazing to me that you can change such a simple thing. It is such a small change in the scope of the champion, and suddenly it's pick ban as a supporting competitive. They've just added another fucking bandage, man, and it's broken now. But that's literally true.
But when you think about it, it's literally 2 skill shot CCs. It's 2 hooks at level 1, which you can just do so much with 2. 1 is already pretty good. You think about Nautilus hook or Thresh hook or whatever, and you're there's pick potential there. But when you have 2 of them, and it's on essentially what is a 4-second cooldown or 4 or 5, I don't know exactly the number, but it feels pretty quick. And then you get this get out of jail free card as well. If you miss your first one, a few seconds later, you have another second chance, and old mate's still trying to run away. They probably still have to burn flash. It's just.
But that's
it's utter
okay. So
bullshit.
that's
Anyway.
the thing, and Juves, you may feel this, but the reason that Amumu is now a support is because he has two forms of crowd control in lane. Look at all of the other tanks that play the role.
Well,
Yeah, you've got Nautilus, you miss the hook, you auto attack. Your Blitzcrank, you miss the hook, you've still got a punch and a knock up. You know, they've all got a get out of jail card, right? If you miss the initial thing, and now Amumu has that, suddenly the tank is now a support. It checks
I think
out
it's
in my
also
head.
the fact that at level 6, like, you're playing with that ultimate. I mean, that's like a game changer ult. Like, the Amumu ult's always been good, right? Like, no one's ever said, yeah, Amumu's ult needs to be changed, because you can, like, lock up so many people or the important people, right? But I think the thing that I wanted to touch on was that most champions that suffer from, like, a relatively weak early game, or can be punished, or, you know, potentially in a tempo meta farm a little bit too slowly in the jungle, right? As an example, where Amumu was traditionally played, those picks always seem like Nautilus to go back to support. Like those hard engaged junglers, if you want to call Nautilus a jungler or a top laner in his prime. Yeah,
Yeah, I think he was supposed to be a jungle
they
top
always
laner
fall
back in the
to
day.
support because they have that little bit of protection from the AD carry. They still do their job in starting the fight, but like you're not going to get out tempoed. You're not going to get invaded early by an early game jungler. So it just seems like such a good fit for those type of champions. Also, like the aftershock or like effect. You know, you bandage toss in, you haven't taken any damage, and you soak for a while, and then, you know, if they hit you, your AD carry is like raining down. So there's kind of like these like all these little variables that I think just skyrocketed Amumu to like the passive
It's passive
to
too.
like an
Yeah.
S tier support, right? But the bandage toss for me, like giving you two in I think, is it 2 in 5 seconds or something like that?
It's every
It's
3
like 5
seconds.
seconds or so.
It's kind of just
Yeah.
pushed him over
Yeah.
the edge, because I mean, we were I was to say, were we? Was that there was? I think there was even maybe an Amumu buff bandage toss or not.
There was like the massive buff at the start of the season, which then got sort of semi-reverted. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it might have put him a little bit higher than what he was like prior
But
to
yeah,
that,
in
where he
short,
was
I
just
just
like
think
not a
those
pick at all.
champions that need a little bit of protection, and they get that protection bot lane, and then they just like they can change games. Yeah, yeah.
He can sort of scale a little bit without getting punished for it, basically. And I mean, the fact that he has like the bandage toss into the ult, into the bandage toss for like insane
And
levels of crowd control as an individual,
And it's funny because
as
you
a
don't want
single
to take
champion,
cleanse,
like you can't beat that.
because I'll just don't get hit by bandage toss, right? Yeah, and then you get hit again.
I'll just bandage toss you
but
again.
Then you lose like that trade potential in lane. Like you're not playing to win lane anymore with the cleanse. So like because at times you may not even hit the bandage toss. Like you may not get hit by bandage toss. So it's like this variable that you need to decide like what you're opting in for. But yeah, Mumu.
Big topic about Amumu. Is there anything else you want to throw in there, Rusty, or should we look for some more?
I guess
nuggets?
like not for Amumu. If I can move on to other champions, I will.
Yes, that's what I want to do. Yeah,
So Vizicsacsi disabled. Vex currently broken in solo queue, which is a factor. So I would imagine all the world's players in solo queue just have to permaban it to get it out of the way. Now that it's not enabled, you know, it's a pain in the ass. But that's the way it is. The other one that I saw initially is that Renekton is a little bit less shit. Because they changed the W lockout to be like half a second, and that's just not a champion. You know, Renekton was...
Yeah, he's like CCing himself. more than
Yeah,
he's
it was
CCing other people
terrible.
or something.
So they reduced that a bit, and I do wonder if we'll just see a bit more of Renekton, because he's one of those, like, I don't want to say cop out, but like free picks for most top laners. You know, you can pick it, and as long as you have a jungler that can come top, you're good. So we might see that again, yeah.
And to add to that too, like Renekton's was never necessarily picked in isolation, but also picked with synergy. So like you picked Renekton Nidalee, you picked Renekton Talia, you picked Renekton and something, because Renekton's setup is just guaranteed. So if they took, you know, if you kind of take that away a little bit, what is it?
Trash.
But
Nothing.
are we going through a tier list?
Yeah.
Because there's also something.
Well, I was going to say, I think this is probably a good time for us to start pulling in the tier list that has
Sure.
been made by LS for some talking points. Now,
No,
obviously,
too much.
we're not going to deconstruct the tier list and make our own one or anything like that. But there are, there's some interesting choices in here. Some things that actually jog the memory for me as well. And the first one that is actually cropping up that I can see, we're looking at the top lane one, I suppose, to begin with. But this is actually relevant for the mid lane as well. I think
Yeah.
Tryndamere I've been seeing a lot more. So I don't know if Tryndamere, did he get a buff or something like that? But I've been seeing him like every second game I've been playing, and he seems to be really strong.
Did
right now.
Tryndamere
That
get
champion is... I don't even know, and it honestly, like, it doesn't matter because Tryndamere needs
I'm gonna
to be removed.
Tryndamere main Reddit, literally.
It is so toxic, man. Like that, I think it was Nemesis playing it more than anything else that brought it
was
to
his pick
the
into
forefront.
Silas. He played it
Yeah.
so much into Silas, and it was just turbo stomping Silas heads.
And there's this one guy from
It's breaking the game in mid. I feel
yeah,
like.
well, that's it. Like it's so good in mid because you get to change the way that like the lane is fundamentally played. Like once you get through the initial hurdle of I'm a Tryndamere, like you hit one crit, the lane ends in mid because they're all usually fragile champions, and if they're not, they're melee, so you win anyway. So Tryndamere is like definitely one of those champs that just messes with everything and kind of reinvents the lane. But it's the same, like it's even out of lane. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you actually stop him from existing in a side lane once he has a full item?
Well,
It just shits me so much. Like,
The theory,
Because he's just going to kill one of them at least.
you just kite back, CC, exhaust, like, and then it's Tryndamere. Because champions like Tryndamere have actually always suffered in a competitive setting. They always suffer when there's synergy, when there's like 5 members that are doing the same thing. Like Tryndamere in solo queue just runs over people's heads, regardless of buff or not, But I feel like Tryndamere's at a point where it probably doesn't matter if you're how synergized you are, because now
yeah,
turrets, like the buff to turrets being worth more gold, like objectives being so focused. Like think back in the day, like you could give dragons for like until a certain point. You could give all these neutrals, but at what cost now? Because you can't really match Tryndamere in a side, so it's become.
well, you know what it is though as well, Juves. It's I can't remember the name of it. It's not just Essence Reaver. It's that other item, the
lethality
Corey
one.
looking thing that. No, the one that reduces your cooldowns of your non-ult when you auto attack or when you crit or whatever. Navori Blade.
Yeah.
Oh,
Quick Blade.
Navori Quick Blade.
Because Tryndamere now, like, he spins in. Usually you just exhaust him and kite away.
Yeah,
then he hits you
twice
once
and
and
then he
spins
spins out.
again.
And
Like,
that-
well, I guess
and
I'm
that-
dead.
Yeah.
Like,
And that was going to be
what
my
do I
final
do?
point on Tryndamere, was that itemization, I think, is just really, really friendly for him at the moment. Like, yeah, it's like
He's
indirect
cool.
buffs was his itemization.
Yep. I know a lot of this has been a discussion around mid, so
one-
maybe we'll just keep talking
The other one I
about
wanted
mid
to
lane,
touch on,
and
the
then we
last
can
one
talk
from
about top.
was Gangplank. I've always been like the
Yeah.
biggest Gangplank fan
Okay.
in a competitive game because it allows you to play weak side so well. Like, it's such a good weak side champion. But I mean, if you're just a better top laner, you'll probably win your GP lane anyway. Like, I feel like GPs are just built different if they're good. And like, the game is so set up now around like diving a specific lane, whether it's top, whether it's bot, but there's definitely a lot of there's definitely a lot of moves that are pre-planned, far more than like, season 3, season 4. I think the game was operated in such a different way, but it just allows you to be either a guy who's ulting bot lane on the dive, or you're ulting your wave top side, walking away from turret and waiting for something to happen on the other side of the map. And I mean, itemization, scaling, like everything in between, GP is just, I think, in such a good spot right now.
This is the 5 keg Gangplank, right?
What is?
Like, this is the Gangplank patch. There was a couple of patches ago now where he has
Yeah.
5 kegs that he can
Yeah,
throw
I think
out,
it would
yeah.
be. I think
That's
it
a
would be.
huge deal because that means you cycle
Yeah,
multiple
yeah.
kegs in team fights too. So like it's just added strength to him. But yeah, no, you're right. The side lane pressure, being weak sided but still contributing to fights. Like it's being able to ult to
Yeah.
clear massive waves if they're 5-manning your wave. Like it's very annoying and difficult to deal with,
He's a
and will
tempo
always
abuser.
scale. True.
And the only other one, I guess, for top lane that is really an interesting pick as far as LS is concerned is this Fiora. So I don't know if you guys have anything really to say on that one, or if that's not a big pick in your mind, not much worth talking about. We
link
can move
you-
on if you don't want to.
No, I think it's a
it's
big
on
deal.
Are you Rusty?
The thing with Fiora, man, is like in a competitive game, it's designed in a way like Tryndamere, you know? Like they are just gonna end up being put in side lanes, and Jules mentioned before turrets being worth more, like shit like that is gonna be a big deal for Fiora. But I haven't seen the reason. I haven't put too much investment in yet into what it is about Fiora specifically. But she's one of those picks, man, that seems to always crop up at Worlds every year.
Yeah, true.
Like literally every year when I think about it, just shows up and you have like hectic Fiora Riven 1v1s or Fiora Jace 1v1s in top lane where it's all about skill matchups. And I fucking love skill matchups top, man. It makes it so
A
fun.
big part of Fiora like being pretty good right now too has got to be the Gore Drinker. I feel like every bruiser top lane just
Oh, Talon. Why has everyone got Gore Drinker, man? that is the most
Okay,
broken
well, this-
thing.
I linked the guys a screenshot of Tenacity, who's like the 100 Thieves sub. Oh,
I'm sure
okay.
they can bring it up on,
Yeah,
on
and like
the show. So
he's just running over EU solo queue. Like I think he's like last time I checked, he was like rank 4, like the highest LP boot camper. Obviously I don't think he's playing scrim, so he's got a bit more time than like the other guys. But nevertheless, like he's just playing Fiora and dropping like 20 kills, 27 kills, 15 kills, 12 kills, like, and he's just opting in for the same build every game. He's gone God Drinker, Sterax, and Ravenous, with sometimes a Death Dance. And I think like, yeah, that the champion just might be slept on a little bit. Obviously, LS has put it very high in his tier list, but we'll see if teams pick it up.
Also, Tenacity kind
Yeah,
of
I
slept
mean,
on, no?
like-
League's biggest superstar and model all in one.
Yeah,
Have you seen them, man?
I've seen him. Actually, I'm gonna follow him.
Very
now,
handsome.
Whatever.
wow,
He's earned the follow.
dude, I'm sure he's going to be pumped when he listens to this show and realizes
He's gonna.
Juice is following him.
He will
He's
look
gonna
at
be
my follow
absolutely
and
pumped.
just piss on me, and that's it.
Okay, so let's move on from top then. And I do sort of appreciate that you mentioned the Talon and you also mentioned the Gore Drinker because that has been something that has been cropping up a little bit in jungle. Now, Gore Drinker itself feels like such a bullshit item to me, particularly as a support player because I can never kill these guys. Like I never probably could kill them to begin with, but now I especially can't kill these guys. So is that just a broken as fuck item? Is the meta trending towards these champions anyway? I don't know. Is there a particular champion in the jungle right now that you think is really strong that should be cropping up at Worlds? Is it Karthus, Fiddle, Evelyn as far as LS is concerned, or is there something else that you guys are looking forward to seeing? I think for me, like, I don't know if it's just because I follow Pabu on Twitter, but I keep seeing Talon everywhere.
Well,
Jules, you're the jungler.
I don't know about Talon because I feel like you're not going to get the same. And Talon farms pretty well, but I feel like you're not going to get the same lead in a competitive setting that like you do in solo queue from a Talon. Like if the Talon, I think Zed
What about
is
Zed, by the way,
like
as
Zed
well?
is
Keep that in
below, like maybe 2 tiers below Talon, because of the clear speed and just Talon has so much more mobility. Like when you think about Summoner's Rift and the angles in which Talon can gank. Like you can literally gank from behind turrets, like the way you hop walls and stuff. So I think there's just that little bit more, I guess, flexibility. Because if Zed uses the shadow to go over that wall, then like that's a lot of Zed's kit gone, right? Just to get there for the gank.
Yeah, the thing with these champions, by the way, I know Pabu's like the prime offender for playing these. They could be competitively viable, but I'm pretty sure Pabu is just off-season grinding solo queue champions because they're fun as fuck. Like, of course, you see the changes.
He also
and you're
did
like,
mention
I'm in.
Fiddle. Yeah, he did mention Fiddle as well, though. So there's one to sort of think about as well. Is that competitively viable? Because this sort of ties into that same conversation I feel like you were having, Juves, about Tryndamere, where it's like, I mean, it works in solo queue, but if people are actively always permanently thinking about Fiddlesticks, does he offer enough in a 5v5 in a competitive sense that he's going to get away with getting ults off?
Playing with Fiddle is all about playing with obviously the B1's vision, but I think tempo. Like if you get there first and have control, if you're like a team that is just so solid around your dragon setup and so solid around playing around tempo and getting there early, then I think Fiddlesticks can be OP or like can be really good. But I also think there's ways to play around Fiddle. I don't think it's like as clear cut as just I'll get to level 6 and we'll get to the river or we'll get to the the mid lane, wherever you want to go, and it's as simple as that, right? Because the game is like really focused around support jungle, at least like this meta. It's like support jungle link up, like go Rift Herald at 8 minutes. Like we see that literally every single game. Now, if you're the team that say has got a really good reset bot side, has maybe your jungle ganked bot side, and that gives you the tempo to reset, run to Herald, get some vision down. Like, what's your Fiddle doing now? Because if Fiddle can't channel ultimate, and if he's just like on vision, and you don't have tempo or control of that game, I feel like it's a little bit of a nothing champion. Obviously, that's just a variable, right? Because you could just say, well, what if we have tempo, and then we're there. So it's kind of like that argument. But in terms of like being a champ, like I think it's fine, but I honestly haven't seen enough of it, and I haven't played it, so I don't. Yeah, it's one of those like I'm in that conundrum of like when I see it, like when I saw Pablo played it, it looked really good. But I also know the counterplay to Fiddle. But the thing is, he farms really fast, and I think in this meta, people really value, like obviously tempo meta, like they value that with the camp respawn timers.
If your AD carry doesn't matter as much in a meta, I think Fiddlesticks is better, right? Because your support has more freedom. Your support then enables the Fiddlesticks. You get more ultimate angles off. You get shit like that. You know, it's snowballing through the rest of the map. And it also means that, you know, one of the other champions on LS's tier list is Karthus. Karthus is protected, and things like Talon can't even mess with you because you can run Exhaust. And if you don't run Exhaust, you have a support now who can run Exhaust and protect you at the buffs where you're scared. So, like, it's these champions are almost always going to have a free time farming, and I do think can be exceptionally strong. Mainly because one, they farm faster than their opponents if they're like a Talon or something, and two, they're protected now from the rest of the team.
That was going to be the next point. Like my biggest point was like I've been on the Karthus bandwagon for I'm gonna say like the good part of 2 years, maybe two years now, maybe 1.5 years. Like last year when I hit Chal, it was just perma Karthus abuse. This year, like nowhere near Chal, but just Karthus abuse. And I feel like Karthus has always been in a really, really good spot. Even on the LCO broadcast, I was like, I wish more teams would pick Karthus. And we had some teams do it, but there's things that there's conditions and factors that need to be met for you to draft Karthus. You can't just pick Karthus and then figure pick ban out for the rest of it, right? Like it takes a bit of thought, it takes a little bit of negotiating pick ban, and you really do need to value the person that's playing it and also play towards the Karthus and cater for the Karthus. But if you can make it work, like fuck, I would be picking that champion at Worlds in a heartbeat, dude. Seriously.
Oh yeah.
He's the kind of champ that feels like even if you shut him down, he's just a ticking time bomb, and he's going to come out of the jungle at some point and just fuck you up.
If all else fails, it makes people nervous to lane with a Karthus. Because all of a sudden, your trades, like you're factoring in how you're trading in lane, like are you going to play for the like farm solo kill, are you getting withered out of lane? But now you have to factor in, there's like that Requiem with Dark Harvest, that and like you've got to factor that damage into the equation. And I think
Half my HP as an ADC, like, maybe more.
I think it's like one of those champs where I would love to see it, you know, being picked up by Babip, to be honest with you. But I mean, I don't think
he'd do it.
But I don't think we operate that way as a region, as a team, whatever. Like I think like I'm a firm believer of just playing towards your strengths, particularly if Peace came back to the LCO and they're one of the top dogs, pick Karthus every day of the week. I think when you're not the top dog, and there's kind of a skill discrepancy between maybe LNG and you know, the other teams that you may be versing, then I think I would much rather see Babip on Jarvan. Like, just play Jarvan, dude. It's a tempo meta, don't get me wrong. Like, you need to stay relevant and ahead in levels, but also just get shit done on Jarvan. Just get shit done and just skirmy. Just skirmy, man. Get the hands out, get the fisticuffs ready, and just have a skirmy at the crab. I don't know if you agree, but...
Okay, well that may be the actual segue into the last two that I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you've got more to sort of throw in here as well, Rusty, before we move on to mid. But Jarvan and Xin at the moment feel like they're in a pretty good place as far as I'm concerned. I like them for the fact that you're almost always going to get at least something out of them. You know, like they're either going to be able to soak some damage when they go Gore Drinker, or they're going to be able to assassinate the backline if they get on top of them. They're going to be able to provide some CC here or there. So are these two champions that we're expecting to see a lot as well? I think they're in a good spot right now, and it seems like they're the kind of champions that crop up a lot when we're watching Worlds.
Yeah,
so,
I have a question for Rusty.
Yeah, go.
I have a question for you, because I saw your reaction when I said Jarvan. Do you not like Jarvan?
No, I like Jarvan. Honestly, I do prefer the Xin Zhao in a lot of ways, for what it's worth. But for me, it's like a style thing, you know. Like, I like that you can play Jarvan, and I think we should. I think in particular internationals we should. I agree. but there is a Karthus world. You know, there is a Fiddlesticks world, and I like the example that I would give for this is Pabu's even done both of those champions at the international to success.
Well, he did cancel
because
his
there was a
drain
time
on
for
on a
it.
camp, and fuck me, if you're canceling his drain on a
Yes.
camp, then what are we doing here?
He did ruin himself, but there was also the Exhaust Karthus game where he like mega minded and got the free
True.
dub. But to me, it's like, am I playing for my jungler or am I playing for my laners? And I think the Peace probably play for their laners, which is a point of difference. So yeah, it's unlikely. Like Babbitt's just going to Nidalee, man.
I wouldn't
He's
even
just
be
gonna
mad.
pick
Like, if
mid.
someone drafts Karthus, just play Nidalee.
Yeah,
It's actually a decent
I think
enough
he'd do
matchup.
that instead.
Well, I mean, I can look at his champs that he's been practicing in the
True.
US
Oh,
right
you
now.
linked
Look
it.
at his account. He's been playing Lee Sin, Lilia, Nidalee, Talia, Kindred, Echo, and then Ezreal when he's getting autofilled, I presume, onto
That's a
ADC. So
shambles.
it seems like the champion pool is pretty much
And
the same
Talon, by the
as
way.
what he's been playing in LCO.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
I suppose,
Are we
I
not
guess
going
that's
to talk
one
about
too.
that
Yeah.
red carpet? Oh, wow.
Let's go talk
Yeah,
about
look,
his matches.
Leo.
He was hard stuck.
You wanna do that to
He
him?
was hard stuck. So I was linked these accounts about a week ago when I was streaming, and I went through them all, and
He
he
was
was
struggling, wasn't he?
struggling. I think he had a 30%
It was like-
win rate.
Are we
I
just...
saw that too. Yeah, I saw that. I wasn't going to
Are
bring
we
it up,
just
but hey,
fucking
you
for
did.
funning
Not
here
me.
or what, man? Chachi's only played like 9 games. Does he have another account? Maybe he does. I assume he was in Europe, so he probably does.
He's from EU.
probably does.
Like,
if he's-
I'll let
has
him off the
to.
board there. And then, what's Tally? I swear, if Tally doesn't have many, I'm gonna DM him right now. Okay, he's got a few games.
Tally-
It's not looking too crash hot here either. If I'm being honest with you, it's
Yeah,
fucking
he's
doomed.
Diamond
It's doomed.
2.
It's doomed.
Well, do you want to hold off on that until we start talking about the mid champs, and then
Yeah,
we can
sorry.
jump into
Keep going.
Tally as well.
All right.
I know we skipped Chachi, but obviously he's a sub, so that's
Love your
fair
work,
enough.
Chachi.
We skipped top. That's fine. Yeah. Let's move on to the mid lane discussion, and we already sort of talked a little bit about Trinimir. So that one's, I think we're fine. We don't need to touch on that again. But LS again here. He's got Graves, Irelia up towards the top. Two very very solid champions in mid. I think you kind of look towards the likes of Oriana there as well. Always going to crop up.
Dude, you know the one we
Always
need to
gonna crop
talk
up,
about,
these sorts of
Jordan, is
champs.
Cho'Gath.
Cho'Gath.
I don't know if you even were considering this champion.
I have not heard much about this, but I have been starting to hear the rumblings over the last couple of weeks. So lay it on.
Changed his Q cooldown by like 1 second.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's not a lot, but that's like a 6-second cooldown on a knock-up form of crowd control that does high damage. It is exceptionally strong for him, and you build cooldown reduction as Cho'Gath. Like, that is unfair that they gave him that at all. I'm worried that we'll see
honest,
a lot of Cho'Gath now because you miss the Q, it doesn't matter. Like, why is a Mumu support good?
True.
You miss the Q, it doesn't matter. You got another one. Cho'Gath's the same now.
Why is Cho'Gath not getting played support then? Maybe that's a discussion point for later on. Maybe he will get played support. Who knows? But
Maybe.
I got to say, I'm actually not disappointed if we get to start seeing a bit of Cho'Gath in mid because I like to see these sort of different picks. Like, I'm very much the kind of person that if there's something weird and wacky out there that could theoretically work, but doesn't necessarily always work, but it has the opportunity to do so, I'm all for that. I'm quite excited to see like something else thrown. I know Cho'Gath mid is a thing. Like, people play Cho'Gath mid, but it's not really a thing, let's be honest. So I'm quite keen and eager to see that, if that's going to be the case.
100%. I mean, the thing is, like, I don't think we'll see it every game. We might see it once or twice, probably at the international. A lot of LS's tier lists aren't necessarily like the world's meta. It's just his tier list on the world's patch. So it's entirely possible that we.
But he does say world's competitive.
Oh,
tier list.
absolutely.
So does that not to you indicate that that's what he thinks would be good?
No,
at
absolutely.
Worlds?
That's what he
taking
thinks.
into account the players that are
Yeah,
playing.
100%. That's what he
whatever.
thinks. And I'm like, again, I'm not here to contest the tier list itself, but the teams, the players that come in with their play styles, their strategies. There's so many different factors as to what will actually get picked. I think Cho'Gath should be picked. I just don't necessarily think we'll see it all the time. However, it's flexible with top lane. So there is that little extra step there, right? Where it's potentially extremely good. So I think we'll see it a couple of times.
Do you have any mid picks in here, Juves, to sort of discuss? I mean, I look at it at the moment, and I just think like feels bad if you're a range
Majors
player,
are.
you know? What are you
Majors
really playing
has
at the
been
moment?
put in the dirt for a few patches now, itemization and whatnot. But I mean, I think the most valuable mids at the moment are the ones that can be flexed, as Rusty touched on, right? Like the Aurelias, the Jace, the Cho'Gath, and then there's those niche. I'm gonna call them niche, but I almost want to call these like the T1 picks, the Rise, the Twisted Fate. Like the side lane into team fight or side lane into you force something. That kind of will see a lot of teams pick up and play, because I think a 4-1 comp, to be honest with you, is one of the easiest like fundamental things to execute in the game. Far easier for me than team fighting, because you actually don't even necessarily need to team fight. You just start fights on your own terms, whether it's a skirmish from a TF port or it's a Rise ultimate, like whatever it may be. So I think a lot of teams in pressured situations will actually default to 4-1, and maybe maybe that's a Z mid, like it's flex, like you can flex Z jungle, Z mid. But I think we'll need to keep our eyes on what champions enable the 4-1, because like team fighting is like saying, I remember when PTG were at MSI, oh, like you're opting for a 5v5 against Damwon Kia. Like how do you win that, right?
Yikes.
But if you say to me, oh, we'll play 4-1 against them and we'll hit a side lane, like who the fuck knows what's gonna happen? Like maybe you win the side lane, maybe your Babip comes down and hovers that, and there's like different. It's less linear. There's more options. Yeah.
More opportunities maybe for some chaos. Throw some chaos in and hope for the best. Is that all we want to say for mid? Is there anything else here for you, Rusty? Because I don't necessarily have too much of a say on
I mean, if T1 can get
I don't
Challenger playing Annie, you can get to group stage playing Annie. That's definitely a factor there. I think LeBlanc also is the exception to the mage rule, which is often very good because she can feel like an assassin position while still being a mage. So she's definitely one that I'll keep my eyes out for, especially if you got the just Twisted Fate one-trick goblins running around every game, just pissing you off. LeBlanc kills them easy.
It feels like Oriana's just always like the one when all shit's sinking. Like Oriana's like the one control mage above water.
Is she like the perfect mid lane?
I wouldn't even. I'm not even calling her perfect, but I'm
is?
saying like in terms of a situation, if you need that magic damage source, you need the control mage.
You can
like,
default back
You know
to
what? I think she is the best designed, well-rounded.
That's what I'm
like
referring to.
in League of
When I say
Legends
best,
through the course of its
that's
existence.
what I
I think
mean.
Oriana
She's always
is the
been
best.
a staple in mid. Like when you can pick her if you need be, and I feel like that's,
Victor close second, maybe.
cool.
Yeah, but he's kind of dipped out of meta sometimes.
True.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's have a look at what Tally's been playing then. And it will be no surprise to many of you that he has been actually playing a bit of Irelia and Tryndamere. There's some Yone in there as well, which is a little interesting to me. These are not, massive, like...
His name's Bomb Devil.
It's not a massive... It's not a massive
Bomb
data set,
Devil.
basically, is what I'm getting at here. He's played a few games. But, Irelia, Yone, Ryze, Tryndamere, Aatrox, Galio, Silas, Kennen, Zed, Twisted Fate are the top 10. And there's a few other sort of ones in there for other roles, I suppose. But, I feel like that's largely in line with what we might have expected and what we have been seeing from him. Like, it's no surprise to see Ryze in there a little bit for Tally in particular. So it seems like he's kind of got pretty much everything on lockdown as far as mid is concerned.
Yeah, you also don't get to see their scrim games for what it's worth. Like in the lead up to Worlds, they're going to be playing so much that you're just not aware of. So you're probably seeing things that maybe he's not as comfortable on is going to be his solo queue match history once it climbs. Tally's a weird one though, where right now he's Diamond 2 with a negative win rate. So probably still wants to focus on climbing.
Down to a right account.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah,
fair.
must be that.
I mean, their MMR's inflated, right?
Okay.
So like he'll be against good players all the time.
Yeah. Nothing.
So if we move on then from mid lane and move into the bot lane position, bot lane / marksman / ADC, we know it gets a little bit convoluted sometimes when there's Ziggs and Karthus and whoever knows what else, Seraphine may be thrown in here as well. For me, the first one that sort of jumps out to me is Misfortune. Been seeing a lot of Misfortune lately. She seems to be cropping up a lot, and her damage is fucked at the moment.
Yeah, it's the combination of a Mumu and Misfortune that is doing it more than anything else. Misfortune's doing Eclipse builds at the moment, I believe, which is just like one-hitting team fights. Trist Mumu is another one as well, because you're following the Mumu going in, so you're getting free bombs off constantly in 6, you just win. I am surprised that the first thing that came up in your mind was the Misfortune when there is a Karthus directly below it. that's what I will say.
Okay, see, I feel like, at least in my experience, at least I draw a lot of my experiences from what I've been seeing in game personally, which is probably not the best way to go when we're talking about Worlds. But anyway, I haven't been seeing a huge amount of Karthus. I've seen it a little bit on streams and what I've been watching and that, but I haven't actually had that much exposure to it playing against the Karthus bot personally. So I don't really feel like I have that much to add in this respect, though I know it's a champion that has been sort of floated around in the bot lane a fair bit, and it's very difficult sometimes to deal with because like you just don't really out-trade him. He puts his wall down and you're kind of screwed. So I mean, is that really a viable pick going into Worlds against the best players in the world? I don't know. Maybe
it's just a flex, right? Like every champion that is high on any tier list, unless it's like turbo broken, is just a flex, and that's what makes them like so strong. Because you opt in for Karthus jungle matchup, get a terrible matchup for whatever that is or may be, or maybe you're drafting it because you're like, oh, it's going bot lane, and then the bot lane matchup is terrible, like you're just outranged, like you can't play the game, so you just pivot, put a jungle, and then you take your bot lane matchup. So like it's fine in that sense, but the main thing is like Aphelios being such a high priority. I feel like Karthus is kind of the pick into Aphelios, because Aphelios, again, when we've seen Aphelios struggle, it's like into the Ziggs, into the Ashe, like into stuff that puts. Well, he's got no mobility. You put that wall of pain up, and like you said, the Skittles go down. It's not easy for Aphelios unless Flash is available, right? And then even then, like you kill the Karthus, then it's a 1-for-1. So I think that's probably why, Karthus is probably going to be one of those picks that maybe we see down there. The other thing I wanted to touch on, and we're seeing this, I'm seeing this on a few streams, on a few games. There's a lot of Lucian being picked up by ADs. A lot of Lucian.
Yeah.
And it's Lucian with a pairing. Like it's not. I'll pick Lucian. It's Lucian with
Nami, Lulu.
Yeah.
Nami,
And it's not your traditional sense what you'd be expecting to see Lucian with, because when you think of Lucian, you think Braum. And there's definitely a realm in which like you play the Lucian Braum. I know like we're probably Braum abusers in our region, but if they opt in for like a Nautilus, or they opt in for an Alistar or something like that, then sure, you can play the Lucian Braum. But I want to keep my eyes on Lucian in particular.
What do you think about Lucian, Rusty? I'm sure you've been playing with a few. To me, every time I see a Lucian in bot, and again, I know it's because I'm playing in Diamond Elo and they're probably not utilizing him correctly and maybe whatever, but I don't know. For some reason, I'm just not a fan. Like, I feel like I've got in my mind that he's a mid pick or a top pick, and I don't want to see him in bot because every time I fucking see a Lucian, they're just inting. Maybe it's just me, but Lucian just seems like I don't play bot. I've been auto-filled ADC. I'm picking this champion. I'm going shit. And I'm like, fuck, I got a Lucian. I'm going to play Nami. And then my Lucian's just standing there like...
I mean, that used to be true, Jordan, but now the way that they changed Lucian, right?
Changed,
where his passive does bonus damage if you've copped a shield or a heal, and it stores twice, which obviously matches his passive, means that you don't even have to be good. Like, you can just press E forwards with a Nami E on you. Like, that's going to give you an Ares shield as well. So, like, suddenly, bang, like, you've just done an extra 100 damage by dashing forwards. That's without an ability. Like, that wins a lane already. Is there
a bit of a concern that he falls off, or do you feel like he's still a champion that's kind of relevant in the late game?
I mean, Lucian's ultimate's just so fucked. Like, it's just so good.
That's the one thing that makes me think, all right, this champ, can still actually compete.
And he can 1v1 most people. He's got so much mobility, but like the ultimate is the damage that you need from the range that you need. So yeah, I think we'll see Lucian.
Okay. Any more champions to talk about in the bot lane before we take a look at Violet's?
I think it's pretty standard. I don't think bot meta's changed too much, aside from a couple of the picks that we mentioned, like with the Misfortune and stuff. But fuck, I feel like AD carries in general is the role that changes the least at times. Like if you've played the game for like the last 3 months, then it's going to be similar, except obviously the support picks changes the dynamic a little bit. But I'd be expecting to see, the Aphelios, expecting to see a lot of Ezreal Goblins. A lot of, with the Lucian will be a surprise. The Misfortune will be a surprise to some, but be some nice little wombo combos in there, nice little dynamic duos.
Yeah, so looking at Violet's champion pool in his games, and he's actually been playing a little bit more. He's actually up into Master, so congrats. He's actually been playing a lot of Lucian, so maybe there is something there for them. And I suppose that might tie into the mantra that we talk about with the P spot lane, that they do like to try to aggress a lot. They like to sort of try to find those 2v2s. They like to play early game fights and whatnot. And to be fair, I guess Lucian's one of those champs that you probably can leave isolated to a degree, and he's going to be able to be relatively self-sufficient, even if it is a 2-on-1. So maybe not a bad choice. Misfortune is in there as well. So Ezreal, Tristana, Kai'Sa, Vayne, Aphelios kind of just rounding out the top few for him, and there's obviously a bunch of other champions that he's been picking up here and there, but for the most part, those are the ones that he's been spending the most time on, which seems to be relatively in line with pretty much everything we've been talking about.
Yeah, I don't think we won't see anything crazy. There was only one other thing that stood out to me was like the Xayah being fairly low, but I think Rakan is very good. That's the only other thing to me that I would be looking at from these tier lists. So if you do go to support, Rakan, I believe, is put in B tier, but there's no S tier. So that's actually still quite highly regarded, I guess. Yeah, I think that like you do look at these bot laners and say that in a vacuum, I think that they are probably going to be like aligned with LS on their tiers, but supports come into account, and that's where some real weird shit is currently blessing my eyes.
All right, let's talk supports then, and this I think is where we might have a bit of a back and forth, Rusty. I'm looking forward to this one because yeah, like Amumu, I guess we've talked about, right? We talked about him at the start before we really started going lane by lane. I don't know that there's that much more to add for that discussion. I feel like that's been done to death. But at least here, if we're still going off LS's tier list, he's got Anivia and Xerath as the two next best picks behind Amumu. Blitzcrank's in there as well, which is also a little bit interesting to me. Obviously, Braum, Leona, we know we're going to expect to see them. That's fair enough. But let's talk about Anivia and Xerath first, I suppose. I mean, to me, I actually kind of like Xerath. I feel like if you perfectly play Xerath in lane, like let's say you hit every single shot, every single skill shot, he's going to be a fucking terror to lane against. But my concern, at least with Xerath, and I think this ties into Anivia as well, is that when we're talking about a competitive environment, we're talking about worlds, we're talking about supports roaming all over the map and making plays and doing what they do, I'm not really sure where Anivia and Xerath really fit into that. I think they're good in lane. I don't really have any qualms with that. But when they're forced to try to make an impact on the map and even in team fights, where do they sort of fit in?
Well, they do the opposite, man. Don't they normally? Like Anivia and Xerath want to win lane super hard. They want to break the turret at 8 minutes. Then they want to go to another lane in mid lane, and that's where they post up and win the game. So like that's what you'd expect. I'm still just sitting here trying to wrap my head around what it is that makes Anivia good enough to be at the top of B tier compared to all of these other supports. What was that?
I got no idea.
I
got absolutely no idea, dude. I'd have to talk to him.
Yeah, I understand the wall can be really good. Vayne's currently being picked everywhere, so there's some synergy. Anivia's stun's obviously nice, and you've got crazy zone control, but like these are just things that Anivia's always had. So like, I'm not actually certain on why she's just there at all. Xerath has an ult at 6 though, so that's the big thing for me with Xerath is you still help other lanes. You just press R halfway up the river.
True.
Yeah.
True.
I do feel like that the Nivea pick, like in theory, that just denies all the melee subs, right? Like, how do you play Braum?
That's
how do you
pretty
play
much it, I
Leona?
think.
Like, how do you play Trundle? How do you play
Nautilus is another one that, like, yeah, you can get on her, but then she's going to put the wall up on your 80 carries on the other side of it, and you're 2v1ing.
And then I feel like Blitz is the only other one that, like, probably maybe can hook Anivia, and then you're in a bit of trouble there. But I mean, if just by that concept, like Anivia's lanes sound good.
I mean, to me, it feels like more of a counter pick than anything else. Like you already know what's coming in the bot lane, or you already know what's coming as far as almost the entire team comp is concerned, and you say, well, we want to bring Anivia for this specific reason.
But I would argue that if it's if that's your second champion on your list, like, because that's what it is. Again, maybe BT is situational, right? Like maybe that's what it is. So, like I reserve the right for it to be just situational. But if Anivia is that good, then I would imagine no matter really what you play into it, like Anivia is just fine. But I reserve the right to find out what BT means first.
Yeah, so we're a little bit confused about the Anivia and maybe even the Xerath to an extent. I would be a bit surprised if we saw those kinds of champions getting picked in Worlds. I'm very much more so expecting the likes of the Leonas, the Braums, the Nautiluses, the Threshers. These are the tried and true, right? So they're the ones that are more than likely going to get picked up on a very consistent basis. So that would be what I'd be expecting out of the supports at Worlds, because I think that's just the way that the game is played at the moment. You want to get into one of those hard engaged supports. You want to be roaming around the map. You want to be influencing things, and so I don't know that that's going to
Hey, you know,
lead us towards the likes.
you
of
know what
Zerath
we'll
and
see
Olivia.
though is the Taric, I reckon, because you pick a Mumu, I pick Taric. What are you
Right.
gonna do? What are you gonna do?
True.
You hit a
I'm gonna
bandage
leave
toss.
lane. I'm
I
leaving
put up
lane.
my E. You're stunned. That's it. I win.
True.
You want to ult? I ult. What do you do? I like Taric. I always think that Taric's a good option in the tank supports, and I also really like Talia. And this has been I'm actually very sad it's on this list because it's been my pocket pick for years. I just
What,
play it
sup?
support. You just sit in the bush
Yeah.
and you just chuck rocks. Like it's the easiest job of your life. They get too close, you just seismic shove them. It's just so fun. It does so much damage. So I really do rate Talia, particularly into those enchanters supports that can't do anything to stop you from having bush control.
Yeah, if you hit 1W, it's over,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, that's another interesting pick. I'm not sure we're going to get to see that one pulled out at Worlds, Rusty, but maybe once or twice if we're lucky. What do you guys think about Soraka as well? This is one that we haven't actually talked about just yet. Is that a Worlds viable champion, or is she just busted as fuck in pubs because she's just able to cleanse the grievous wound on her ult? It feels very annoying to verse. But I don't know that it's necessarily going to be a champion we'll get through here in Worlds.
I don't think we see much Soraka, to be honest. I'll leave it at that. I think there's just better things.
I don't know if we'll see it.
Maybe because she got
I don't
nerfed?
know if we'll see it, but I think
People
cleansing
are, like-
Grievous is broken.
I think there's a stigma around picking Raka. Like, you can't be the person that picks Raka and then loses because you're just going like 0-15.
Because that's cringe.
And yeah, it's cringe. And everyone's like, well, why'd they pick Soraka? I feel like there really is a stigma around Soraka. Not even kidding. Because I remember when Dracu picked it in the LCO, we're all like, what the fuck? Like, he's picking Raka. Like, the balls on this guy. And then, like, he's just picking another champion in a situationally good matchup.
Yeah.
Like, Raka, like, if for some reason, like, if you ever take like a Braum or a Trundle or whatever blind, like, then Raka your heart out. Like, Raka your heart out, dude. You're just gonna win the lane scale and like be impossible to lose.
Anything else you want to throw in here, Rusty?
No, not really. I feel like we've just spent so much time talking about champions that I feel like
Yeah.
I'm on an LCO
Yeah, got to that
broadcast
point, I guess.
again.
Yeah.
Like we did go
Except,
into champions, didn't we?
There's no game to talk about though. That's the only thing. So I suppose that's the
So
only.
they
just
can
can't
cut.
help
Like, they can
ourselves.
cut half. Yeah. They can cut half. They'll just condense
Yeah,
it.
no, honestly,
Just to
fuck
be
all
honest,
of
Just
that.
cut all
off.
the
Fuck
other
it all
lanes.
off.
I wouldn't even want to listen to that. That's fucking
Even I
weird.
was hitting a point during that when I was like, it's fine. Like everything we're saying's fine.
Yeah.
But that's not
Yeah.
what I want to talk about.
Yeah. I agree.
All right. Well, do you want to talk about how any of that affects the Peace Champion pool? I feel like we've already sort of covered that, to be honest. So why don't we move on to who will win the whole thing? Who's going to win Worlds?
Ooh, the whole thing.
Can I say
Yeah,
mine first?
yeah, get it.
I think FPX win,
Yeah.
but I think they win at the cost of other LPL teams getting knocked out.
Oh, you want that bracket again?
What?
You want China versus China and Korea versus Korea, basically, right? That was last Worlds,
No,
wasn't it?
no. I want FPX to make the final.
Yeah.
And FPX to verse any other region but China.
Oh, like the
Because-
opposite.
Because if you watch LPL, FPX sort of struggled a little bit into the top dogs in the LPL, like, because I think systematically in the way that they operate, they kind of get cancelled out. Like, stylistically, they get cancelled out by other LPL teams, or other LPL teams just figure them out, right? Like, they play against them so much, they probably scrim a bunch together, and they know how to beat them. But I think, like, FPX, the way they play, the way that the game's devolved into like supports moving, Rift Heralds being something that's just like literally flipped the aim in it. Like, half the times I watch games, I'm like, they didn't need to contest that, but it just feels like there's this unspoken rule you have to contest. And I think if you do that to FPX, like, you're playing into their bread and butter.
Yeah, no, actually, that was going to be my pick as well. So I'm with you there. It'd be
Oh, there you
it'd
go.
be disingenuous to not say that Damwon Kia and whatnot have a very serious contenders chance. But I've always been a little bit high on the Doing B hype train. He's been one of my favorite players. So there's
And
a
Crisp, man.
bias there. Yeah, and Crisp is a freak, man. I mean, to be
Yeah.
fair, like the caliber of player coming out of the LPL is disgustingly high. Like, it's so good on average now, to the point where I was having a conversation with someone about RNG, and they were my, I want to say, wild card to not make it out of groups. If I had to pick a team, I picked RNG I
Oh, really?
but at the same time, they could make the semifinals. You know, like they're just good enough players that I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Like that's how
I'm the
good the
biggest
LPL is.
LCK fanboy as well. Like I watch like almost all the games because time zone is such a good time to watch. LPL is on at the time too, but I can relate to like Faker and like Chovy, Showmaker. I just feel like it's for me it's just the region that I watch. But like I see LPL play and it's like LPL teams play and it's like, oh wow, there's just levels.
Is that just because, Juves, you kind of
Yeah, I
came
did.
up in
Yeah.
the era of OGN, right? Like, I remember when I was really into League of Legends initially, it was like people from Australia, they either watched like Australian tournaments here and there whenever they were around, and then obviously OPL when it came on. But LPL wasn't really such a big deal until it really started to get going a bit later on in the piece. But everyone was watching OGN because it was
Yeah.
on at our perfect time zone. It was the best League of Legends in the world. And I feel like that
It's purely
might be
because
a contributing
LCK
factor,
was
right?
the best
Nostalgia,
when
right?
I was playing. Like, like when I was
Mm.
playing, like you had to watch score VODs, you had to watch Bengi VODs, like you had to watch these guys were like the kings, and it was like Starhorn Royal Club were like a close, like they were a close second, but reality is like it wasn't even really that close when you watch like the World Finals, right? And like
Yeah.
Uzi was the one guy you would remember from like all of those games. So it's like, well, fine, who am I gonna watch? Like I'll watch the LCK then, and I kind of just stuck with it because I've built in my heart, I've built storylines with the players that still exist. That's Faker, pretty much, right? But now I love like the new ones coming up that are trying to dethrone Faker and have. Yeah.
Yeah, they just definitely have. It's also it was fucking impossible to watch the LPL back then. You know, like it wasn't done very well. It was pretty janky, and even when it was taken over by Riot, and I was working on it in
I only
2015,
watched it for
still
the
janky.
Masters.
Still felt like we were getting a backup feed almost in terms of quality.
Oh, I've done clean feed broadcasts before, and sometimes they're a bit rough.
Yeah, it's a 480p clean feed.
Actually,
It's so clean.
Fun
Uh,
fact, Rusty, maybe
yeah.
not we, but I also should support FPX because who did I work for when I was in China that one time? Yeah, Fun
Yeah,
Plus.
yeah, Fun Plus, right? Yeah, true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I hadn't even considered that actually. Yeah, you've worked for
I
FPX.
met one of the, I don't know, like if it's the boss, but I met one of the bosses there, and they'd just be watching like Netflix. We'd finish at like 5 a.m. because we're doing European circuit as well, and like they'd just be there watching like Netflix and chilling and ordering food, and we'd just be like, "Hey man, like I was like, can you sign me next year?" And he just laughed at me, and I was like, "Yes, yes, no."
That's-
But do you also support
I drive
Darmon
a
Gaming
Kia.
because you drive a Kia, Juves, or? Oh, okay, my bad. That's awful. Anyways.
really got that one.
I actually also put FPX on my. What was it? It was like you could like predict in the client, and you got taken to the pick'ems. Yeah, I put them. I actually have no idea why, to be honest, because like I said, I don't really watch much international stuff, and I don't really keep up with the relative strength of other regions compared to OS. Really, all I do watch is mostly OS. But yeah, I just looked at that roster, and the way that I thought about it mentally was like, okay, how many of these players do I just like hear about all the time? And I'm like, Nuguri, Tian, Doinby, LWX, Crisp. Like you hear about these guys every fucking day. It's like someone's posting about them on Reddit or Twitter or whatever it may be. So I felt they must be good. I'm going to pick them. So I'm glad that I seem to have chosen correctly. Hopefully I'm going to get some points out of that or whatever. I did think about floating down one, but I also then thought, how many times has a team actually won back-to-back in
No.
Worlds?
I think their bot gets
Not that
gapped
often.
really hard
So,
too.
there is that.
Yeah.
So
true.
I think that more or less wraps us up for the show, unless there is anything else you guys want to sort of
Well, I just want to. No,
talk
I just
about.
want to
What do you
wrap it
want to
up
throw
because I'm
in?
gonna go
Does
belt
Juice want to
Rusty
do
in
rap
New World,
or?
dude. I'm gonna go find him. I'm gonna go
Oh,
find him
you
and belt the shit out of him.
see
Okay.
it, Brightwood, mate.
So wait, did you guys figure out who's the number one
No.
PvPer
No.
between the two?
No,
of
we
you
haven't
just
got there yet.
Yeah.
I'm unfairly leveled.
need to catch up.
It's
But
probably not worth it.
My faction
Yeah.
is having internal arguments about who the best PvPer is, and I said, "You guys are really cringe. If you want to watch something, watch Riff Rivals, and that's it." And then I said that actually, no, I said that in global chat, and then like guys from Order, like Giles and all that, messaged me. They're like Juves, and I was like, "Hey, bro, what's up?"
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's always really good playing a new game, isn't it? Like when you know everyone. For me, the best one was Apex Legends. When everyone was fucking hitting Apex Legends, I was playing it until like 4 a.m. for the whole week that it came out, and I was finding people in all these random games and shitting on them because I was a god at that game right at the start. So that was good for me. Look, is there any final shout outs that we do shout outs
Shout out
on
my
this show?
mum, my
I
dad.
don't know, it's
Shout
up to you
out
guys. What do you want to do?
Shout out Cookie. Shout out Peter. Just shout out the crew.
Shout out
Yeah,
Yomi
shout out
server
that.
on New World.
And I really just shout out Peace. Like, they're going to bring it home for the boys. We're coming for that third place slot. We'll get the bronze
True.
medal on the podium with the champagne in our face, like third place. Yeah, fuck yeah. Well, I don't
Yep,
do.
that
I
looked
don't
like
just have
champagne
sitting around.
juice.
Yeah,
A lot.
I call it champagne, by the way. When I order, hey,
Yep.
champagne here, please.
What about a shout out to our other
They
compatriots?
could have come
Mac,
here. They
Nat,
could have come here if
Stimmy?
they wanted to. So
Give a shout out to them. They could have come and
were
and
they
worked.
offered? I don't even know if they were offered. Oh, well, okay.
No, I don't think
Yeah,
so. I think they asked for the ATM.
Well, then we give them a
on the
kind
No, no,
shout out.
yeah,
Then
'cause
we
it would've
don't
been a
want to be
different
too
shout
mean
out.
to them.
Anyway,
They got us.
sad you guys couldn't be here. Sorry about that.
Mate.
Yeah, Rusty, what have you got?
I just wanted to say this is the point where our amazing sponsors would get shouted out, so I
And
can't wait to
thanks,
meet you.
thanks, Budweiser.
Yeah,
BB, thanks,
maybe.
Victoria Bitter.
Hopefully, one day down.
I can't
down the
slight
track.
anyone's name at this point because it's open, right? It's real estate.
Insert,
We love them
name
all.
here.
Yeah, it's free real estate. Free real estate.
DoorDash.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to close it there. Yeah, DoorDash is a good one. We'll definitely get some free food from them for the next show. Listen, for those of you that are watching still all the way after that, 30, 45-minute discussion about champions,
What are you doing
that's
with your
great.
life?
Thank
What
you
are
very much
doing
for
with your
sticking
life?
Let's
around.
Cut it.
Hopefully you enjoyed. Let us know
Don't.
what you liked, what you didn't like, what we could potentially add. I don't know when there's going to be another one of these. It might not be until LCO starts.
Have we
again
been
in
hired for that?
2022. Maybe we'll pull something out if Peace does really well for Worlds.
Okay.
Juves, I have some bad news, but I'll tell you after the broadcast. And I do want to hear feedback from everyone, as to whether they liked it or not. So, just let us know if you like this concept. We'll definitely do a better job next time. We'll actually maybe prepare some pre-planned topics as
True.
opposed to sort of just YOLOing it and doing whatever we want as the show goes on. But hopefully it's been fun. Hopefully it's been enjoyable. And hopefully we'll see you next time. Before we do go, though, I want to say make sure you raise your koalas. Make sure you jump into Twitch chat tonight for Peace's first match in Worlds. We'll all be there. We'll be cheering them on and wishing them the best. So thank you. And we'll see you next time.
I'm to get on the burner account, Rusty, and just say, yeah, fuck yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great, man.
Yeah. Loved it.
Fuck
Every
yeah.
second of it.